Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. It most certainly wasn't pretty, but it was the Rays back in the win column, and they are now back to 500. It is a good evening to you, and how you be at 10:21 on this Tuesday night. It is William Haynes here, and you there. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. Again, number to call the show, 877-566-1020. If you'd like to come on and talk Rays, it was Tampa Bay 4-3 over the Oakland Athletics. This series is now tied at 1 game apiece, and all the issues that we talked about yesterday not really getting resolved, but the Rays able to win in spite of them, and by that I mean hitting with runners in scoring position, and they go almost as bad as you could in a game tonight. 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position tonight, and they leave a total of 10 base runners, and at the worst, at the low point, they had gone 0 for their last 26 before Joey Wendell hit an RBI single to add an insurance run in the 7th inning that they very much ended up needing, because Diego Castillo coming on for what would be his 5th save of the year and his first appearance in almost a week, I believe just up to 6 days now. And he gave up a home run to Sean Murphy that made it 4-3, and then locked it down from there. Had the 7-8-9 hitters, but did have to face Matt Chapman, who has hit a walk-off against Castillo in his career. So it did get a little bit hairy there down at the end, and it was tied for most of the middle innings. The Rays did score first. I believe now they are 10-5 when scoring first in games. They are now, or they still are, I believe, 2-8 when their opponents score first, and I think they improved to 3-4 on the season in 1-run games. And the Oakland Athletics, who had not lost a 1-run game coming into tonight, I believe they are now 5-1 in that category. So any win is great at this point in the season. They certainly did need a win tonight, as the rest of the American League East was in the win column as well. The Boston Red Sox over the Mets. The Blue Jays, I believe if they have not already, they'll be wrapping up a win shortly against the Nationals. The Yankees won over the Orioles, so they went flip-flop the last 2 nights, and the division really is neck and neck. The Blue Jays and Rays are now both at 500 and are tied 3 games back of first, which is the Red Sox at 15-9. So important to at least stay within striking distance, because the one thing that the Rays cannot afford this year is to fall behind in the division early. You look to 2019, the last full 162 game season. the Rays were the very last team to get into the playoffs in the American League. The 5 seeds, they were the 5th seeded team, the second wild card. And to do that, they had to win 96 games. 96 and 66. They were, by season's end, 30 games over 500. So right now at 12 and 12, I know it's still April and we're wrapping up here shortly the opening month of this 2021 season, but the Rays are going to need to catch a little bit of momentum here at some point this season and stack some wins together. So some more consistent play would obviously be nice, especially from the offensive end. The pitching staff and the defense, which has been terrific as of late, I think held up pretty decently tonight. Michael Wacha giving up just a run over 5 innings, and he looked just as you would expect and was really pounding the strike zone. 15 of 20 first pitch strikes and of his 69 pitches, so they were able to keep his pitch count nice and low there, 52 of which were for strikes. He probably could have gone maybe another inning or two, but it was close and they wanted matchups. And then as we discussed going into the game, they were going to have all the A bullpen lined up because in the last 2 games it was Strickland and Lewis Head pitching some innings. And so, as we said, Castillo has not pitched in about a week. They were going to have Thompson. I think Kittredge was available. I don't know if we saw him warm up or not. You would have thought that the 8th inning would have been his spot to come in instead, and what was the head-scratching, not quite bullpen gaff type move, but it certainly was questionable. Trevor Richards coming on essentially in a 2-run game, or I believe at that point it might have just been a 1-run game, as the setup man, and he, I guess, ended up doing fine. He walked the leadoff hitter and then retired the next 3, so ultimately, it does not end up coming to bite the Rays, and he was on the mound with a 2-run lead. So, in a save type situation, I don't understand the move. Richards is kind of a length guy that'll get you 3 innings here and there and about 50 pitches, and he can do that every 3 or 4 days or so. But Kevin Cash doing what he does with some of the, as I said, head-scratching bullpen moves, but it does end up ultimately working. The bullpen in 4 innings of work allow 2 runs. Jeffrey Springs, one of them, and he gets his first win as a Ray. He is now 1-0 on the season. And Diego Castillo, as I said, gave up the home run to make it a 1-run game, but quite emphatically retired the next 3 batters that he faced, including Matt Chapman, striking him out for the final out. And I believe this was his 5th save in 7 opportunities. I believe he had a blown save in Boston and then in Kansas City, which was actually his last appearance. So he's kind of been stewing with that outing for 6 days or so. We know about the adverse effects that he was having from the vaccine, and he was on the COVID IL for a day. So good to see that he's good and healthy. His pitches looked pretty good, I would say. He looks normal. There was not any rust seemingly that needed to be knocked off. So that was good. And for the lineup, offensively, a couple more surprises that we'll continue to talk about throughout the night. Cash is really shaking things up. He had really kind of defined roles over the last couple of weeks as far as leadoff and cleanup hitter and guys who are at the top more and guys who are at the bottom of the order more. Well, now he's kind of thrown all that to the wind. Kevin Kiermaier led off for the first time this season. This is in 2 nights. 2, I guess you would say, new leadoff hitters, as neither Rosarena or Kiermaier had done that yet this season. Brandon Lau, who's the hitter that's struggling the most right now, Kevin Cash moves him all the way up to the 2 spot, and he goes 1 for 5, and obviously, as Kevin Cash is kind of known for, he does not go away from his guys when they are struggling. In fact, it's just the opposite, and he puts them in quite seemingly somehow the biggest spots possible. Meadows cleaning up against a righty, but I don't like that move, and he is really struggling a lot right now. He goes 0 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts. They move Yandy to the bottom of the order, and I'm not a huge fan of that, but I guess you would say it worked tonight. Mejia in the 8th spot, he goes 3 for 4, and who could forget Brett Phillips, his first game-winning hit of the year, a 2-run shot in the 6th inning, and what a blast it was. It was basically 417 to, I believe, left center, so for him to basically kind of hit the opposite way was very impressive, and I guess he got a good pitch to hit, and with Mejia on first base, It gave the Rays a 1-run lead at that point, and they were never going to look back. And as I said, Wendell singling in the 7th to add that insurance run that they very much did need. So at this point, we're going to take a break, allow some calls to roll in. We'd love to have some of you guys join the show. If you'd like to call and talk Rays, the number to call is 877-566-1020. We'll take a little break and maybe allow some calls to roll in. So in the meantime, don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBCOfficial. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:31, we are back on the William Haynes Show, this Rays post-game edition of the William Haynes Show. Number to call the show if you'd like to talk Rays, 877-566-1020. But without further ado, tonight's Rays 4-3 win at Tropicana Field. It breaks what was a not great a two-game losing skid, and they had lost 4 of their last 5. They improved to 12-12, and they dropped the American League best Oakland A's to a record of 15-9. In front of a paid attendance of 2,924, and in 2 hours and 56 minutes, the 4-3 win was for the Rays. 4 runs on 10 hits, no errors for them, and then for the Oakland A's, 3 runs on 8 hits and 2 errors defensively for them. So a defense that had been pretty stellar in Game 1 for the A's comes back to bite them a little bit. So one was in the first inning, and they did give the RBI to Arozarena. It was a hard hit ball with a runner at third and only 1 out. And then after that, it was Brandon Lau getting all the way to second base on basically a 2-back error from the starting pitcher Frankie Montas. It was just a comebacker hit by Lau to the pitcher, and his throw to first was just wide, and it caromed away basically down near, I think, the Rays bullpen, and Lau was able to scoot over to second base. And obviously, what is it with the runner in scoring position? Of course, he didn't come back or come across the score, but those were the 2 errors on the night, so they both happened somewhat early in the game. And 2 teams right now that I think are playing pretty decently defensively. The Rays probably more so. Getting the win in his first as a Ray, it is Jeffrey Springs in his 1 inning of work where he allowed a run. He's now 1-0 on the year, getting the save. Diego Castillo, his 5th, and I believe 7 opportunities, and getting the loss is the A's Frankie Montas, the starting pitcher, who goes 6 innings, 3 runs allowed. He is now 2-2 on the year. And we'll talk now the lineup that Kevin Cash put out there. Defense first, in the outfield from left to right, it was Randy Arozarena in left, Kiermaier in center, Brett Phillips in right, and then in the infield from third to first, shaking some things up some more. Yandy at third, Yandy Diaz at third, Willie Adames, Yandy at third, Joey Wendell at shortstop, Brandon Lau at second. At first base, it was Yoshi Tsutsugo. Francisco Mejia did the catching, and the DH was Austin Meadows. So this is the first right-handed starter that they have seen in quite some time. I believe it was Jacob Junis of Kansas City, which was, almost a week ago. So I understand maybe Cash being a little bit eager to get kind of their normal lineup, because obviously you're going to see a lot more right-handed starters than you will lefty starters, and allowed to get guys playing time that I had not in a while, because they were very righty-heavy with the bat. So Yoshi comes back in the lineup, and he plays the field as well, and he has not looked great at first base this year, but I thought did a fine job tonight, which moves Yandy Diaz over to third, so they do not give him a day off, and he's continued to play almost every day, and I would say batting .236, yes, but you would be pleased, as he's probably one of the only guys that you would say day in and day out is working really good, consistent at-bats, which is certainly what this team could use more of right now. The outfield, somewhat traditional. Randy plays the field, and to get a lefty bat in there, they go with Brett Phillips. They use the DH on Meadows, so he didn't have to play the field, so that's where Phillips comes in, and I think unless they wanted to maybe DH Yandy Diaz, in which case I guess you would have Wendell probably at third and Adames at shortstop. So they decide to go against that. So basically not having Adames in the lineup allows them to DH Austin Meadows, and that to have those three outfielders, that puts Brett Phillips into the field. And I guess you would say that paid off, as Brett Phillips with the game-winning hit, his 2-run homer that came in the sixth inning, and what an impressive shot that was, as we mentioned. And a guy that has not looked so great at the plate, he's now 172 on the year, is Phillips, but always seems to come up in some pretty big moments. He was 0 for 2 tonight, though, with runners in scoring position. The team was 1 for 12 in that regard tonight, which it was getting very difficult to watch, as it has been. The Rays, they were, in their last 4 games going into tonight, were batting, I think, .083 with runners in scoring position, which was good for, I want to say, like a 2 for 24 stretch. So you compound that, and that's a 3 for 36 stretch in their last 5 games. So doing the quick math on that, it's still .083. So this team is absolutely abysmal right now in that regard, and they didn't really show much ability that was going to change, as they got a heck of a lot of opportunities and continued to squander them time and time again. The situations tonight, they had a runner at third base with no men out, as it was the leadoff triple for Kevin Kiermaier, and with the help of an error, but a RBI was awarded, they were able to bring him in. They had a runner at second in the second inning with 1 out, and were not able to bring him across to score. They had runners at second and third with 2 outs. No runs comes from that in the fourth. They had runners at first and second with 1 out in the fifth. No runs came from that. And then they had runners. They did cash in, not with the runner in scoring position in the sixth, but they do cash in finally in the seventh. It was a runner at second with 1 out, and Joey Wendell's RBI single knocks him in. And then they did have runners at first and second with 2 outs in that inning for Yoshi Tsutsugo, and he grounds out to end the inning. And then they do leave another man. They had a man at second with nobody out in the eighth, and he does not end up coming across to score. And that was, by the way, Francisco Mejia, who was 3 for 4 tonight with 2 doubles, hitting doubles 4 and 5 on the year for Frankie Mejia. And you would say maybe he's like playing out of his mind right now. He's hitting .311 and has looked stellar on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. I think we've raved about both the catchers, Mejia and Zunino, and right now, as I said, on both sides of the ball, they're getting production out of both of those guys right now. And Mejia right now as a switch hitter is showing some abilities that he can come up in big spots on the season. I think he's batting like right under 400 with runners in scoring position. Did squander an opportunity tonight. He did fly out to right with a runner at second, but then outside of that, he doubled with a man on first. singled with the bases empty, and then doubled to lead off the 8th inning. So a really good game for him. And I guess with that being said, we'll kind of go down one by one and basically discuss how everyone did. So the way that the lineup was ordered, Kevin Kiermaier led off for the first time this year, as they've gone unique leadoff hitters in back-to-back games and have used 24 different lineups in the first 24 games. Brandon Lau moves all the way up to second in the order. Randy Arroz ran it down to 3. Austin Meadows batting cleanup. Joey Wendell 5th. Yandy Diaz 6th, and a 7-8-9 of Yoshi Tsutsugo, Francisco Mejia, and Brett Phillips. So I don't love everything that went into this lineup, and not that it mattered because no one was hitting well with runners in scoring position, but there was the guys that came up in big spots are not necessarily the ones that you want. But this is not a lineup that they're going to use every day, and there was jokes on the pregame show on the radio side about is Kevin Cash going to start doing the old adage where he picks the lineup out of the hat, just randomly selecting guys and the order in which to hit them, but obviously he's not going to do that. There is always a method to the madness and science behind it, but Kevin Kiermaier, who has been working some of the better at-bats for anyone on the team right now, and since coming off the injured list, is hitting absolutely dynamite. He goes just 1 for 5 tonight, but that leadoff triple gave the Rays seemingly the spark that they needed and allowed them to score not just in the first inning, but also allowed them to get the first run of the game, and they are now, I believe, 10-4 when scoring first in games. They're 2-8 when their opponent scores first. So just looking at those numbers alone would lead you to think that maybe that's something that they can do to put themselves in a better position to win. Obviously, that when you score first, it makes sense that you would have a pretty increased chance of winning the game, and they've struggled in one-run games so far this year as well, which has kind of been their trademark as games where they tend to shine, but before it was just kind of the pitching could lock things down and hold a small lead. Well, now it's just the pitching is not allowing many runs, but the offense is doing even worse. So that's where I believe that this now 3-4 record in one-run games, which is amazing that they've already played 7 of those in the first 24 games. Almost a third of their games are within one run. Not a lot of games where teams are running away or anything like that. But back to the discussion of the lineup. Brandon Lau, obviously I'm not a fan of moving him up to the 2 spot. You understand the thought process behind that, which is Kevin Cash wanting, I guess you would say that this is a vote of confidence in him. Brandon Lau spoke. I think he did a little bit of a pregame hit, and He was hard on himself for sure. We had a caller last night that was maybe calling for him to get benched or even to send him down to the minor leagues, and he has certainly had his struggles this season. But a lot was made of his off season. Obviously, it's getting to the point where that's just becoming a trope. Of course, everyone is having a great off season. That when they're in the batting cage, they look fantastic. But you throw them out there against 98-mile-an-hour fastballs that move all over the place, and all of a sudden hitting is not so easy. I understand that. But Brandon Lau, a guy who has been prone to slumps throughout his career. Really, in 2018, he had a rough stretch. 2019, he was hurt for a big spot of the year, and then in last year in 2020, at the end of September and really all through the month of October, really struggled to do much of anything at the plate. And so far this year in 24 games total, I don't know for him how many games it's been, but he's batting 160. He goes 1 for 5 tonight overall, and he's 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. And I don't exactly know where the light at the end of the tunnel lies for Lau, but Cash is going to continue to play him. He's looked good defensively. They initially gave him an error on a play where he was, basically playing in the shift, which, in shallow right, and he kind of made a diving little grab in the play, and his throw to first was just a little off. It ultimately ended up being a base hit, and definitely an effort play and a plus play defensively for him. Almost took a hit away. If the throw had been good, it wasn't necessarily routine, but if he had made it, definitely would have taken a hit off the board. So he has continued to play well defensively. Throughout the majors, he's regarded as one of the best second basemen in turning double plays as well. So is a valuable member of the team in that regard, but was also one of the guys, maybe him and Randy Arozarena the most so, guys that the Rays were looking to lean on offensively, and that has just not worked out. With Brandon Lau, I kept saying, he needs to be the everyday cleanup hitter. Right now, certainly that's not what you want. I don't even know who hits cleanup right now. I wish Choi was here, and he'll be back soon. It looks like he'll be playing in AAA Durham as they start their season next week, and he's going to have to do a substantial amount of conditioning work for Choi. But you have to, I guess, work with what you've got right now, and I think by season's end, he probably will be kind of the everyday cleanup hitter once he finds his stride. And as Dave Wills was saying on the radio broadcast tonight, when he's at his best, he can carry this team in this lineup. And so I think that's just one of the missing pieces right now that, as we said last night, this team is just kind of sputtering, between first and second gear, or whatever kind of analogy you want to use to describe that, where it's just they're missing something. They're getting opportunities. It seems like they have more men on base than anyone in baseball, but just continually struggle in big situations. They do not have anyone who can get the big hit, which certainly for most of the playoffs last year, that was a completely different story. It seemed like they were getting the big hit whenever it was that they needed them, and certainly would not have gone as far as they did, which was 2 games short of a World Series championship, if they had not been that way. So, again, you're probably going to have to be somewhere between 25 and 30 games above 500, I would imagine, in order to qualify for the postseason this year. This team is at 12-12 right now, and they are, I will say this, they are in a rough stretch in the season. This end of April, this homestand we knew going in was going to be tough against the Blue Jays, Athletics, and Astros, and they've got 2 games left against the A's and those 3 against Houston. And then May, which I believe is going to be one of the more challenging months of the season, so this does not come at a great time. They've got that West Coast road trip where they're playing the Angels for 4, who have been playing decent baseball, and they'll go to Oakland for 3. Then they've got that homestand against the Yankees and Mets, so you'll play the New York teams. The Yankees have not looked so great. It seems like they're coming on a little bit, and the Mets, well, they are at, I think, 500, but they're incredibly talented. And, you'll probably have to face Jacob deGrom or, Marcus Stroman for, 1 or 2 of those games. You go to Dunedin for 4 to play the Blue Jays, and you already know that that's going to be weird. And then you've got the Royals and the Phillies at home as well. So not going to be easy. So they had their chances early in the year to stack some wins against the Marlins, the Red Sox, the Rangers, and they just squandered a lot of those opportunities, mainly the sweep in Boston, getting swept, and losing 3-4 to the Texas Rangers, who no one really was believing in going into the year. And the Rays, I guess, typically don't start super fast. I mean, I know they did in 2019. They had a slow start last year. They had a slow start in 2018 when they ultimately went on to win 90 games. But it's just you're struggling to see where things are going to change. Not necessarily that guys are at their ceiling right now offensively, but just that we're 24 games in, and really nowhere across those 24 games have we seen really any bright spots or anything that would lead you to believe that this offense is going to be able to sustain itself over what is going to be a long season. You're going to have slumps across the year, but the fact that they have not even found their groove yet, it's impossible for this team to go into a slump because they've never really been anything that you would define as out of a slump. So we just like to see that get turned around, and Cash is desperately trying to make changes with the lineup and give guys a spark where you can. Thankfully, that the pitching and the defense is playing as well as they are to keep games close. And really, if they were hitting better than 083 over their last 5 games with runners in scoring position, and they're bottom 5 in the majors with batting average with runners in scoring position, this would be a totally different story. It's not a huge leap for this team to be a front runner in the AL East and all that stuff that we were hoping for them going into the year, but as I say, and I guess can't say enough times, it's just you have to come through in those opportunities, and they're not always going to be there, but there has been a ton of them, and it seems like they squander almost every single one. So that's obviously where the frustration comes from. But with the win tonight, kind of closes that wound up a little bit, or I guess just covers it up, so it doesn't hurt as badly right now. But back to the lineup, the order. I mean, They move Wendell and Diaz to the middle part of the order. Yandy in the 6th spot. I don't really understand that. I mean, I think he's pretty much locked in as a leadoff guy. I understand it was against a righty tonight. It seems like Cash loves that righty-lefty, especially in the leadoff spot, so that's whatever it is. But he's pretty much just a walk and singles guy. And in the 5 spot, I don't understand really what value that provides, because having him come up on first base with 1 or 2 outs, and the 7 and 8 hitters, Yoshi and which tonight it was Mejia in the 8th spot coming up after him. I just don't see a ton of value in that. If he's going to be on first, I would rather, I know they're struggling right now, but Randy, Meadows, and Lau coming up behind him so they can at least have men on base when they come to the plate in case they do something. But they wanted other guys at the top, so someone has to scoot down. And that's really all I can say from that standpoint. And they got, we talk about their ability to win and have success different ways. Sometimes it's just a couple of guys getting a lot of hits. But tonight it was one of those where basically everyone had a hit. The only guy in the starting lineup that didn't have a hit was Austin Meadows, who goes 0 for 4 with the 2 strikeouts. The only guy with multiple hits was Mejia, who goes 3 for 4. But everyone else in the lineup, the other 7 men, all got 1 hit apiece. So you would think, seeing that you would be able to kind of have runs at different points in the game, and that was kind of the case. They had 1 run in the 1st, 2 in the 6th, and 1 in the 7th. And obviously, as I said a little bit earlier, they had chances all throughout the game. It seemed like they had at least a chance with runners in scoring position, just guessing, I think in like probably 5 or 6 innings of the game. So that they were failing, and a lot of those is the disheartening part. So we'll start with Kevin Kiermaier, who goes 1 for 5 tonight with a run scored, no walks, and 2 strikeouts. He's batting now .256 on the year, an on-base percentage of .273, so is still not walking a whole lot. His only hit of the night was to start the game, and it was on the first pitch. He got a fastball kind of middle, and that's been a big topic of conversation and something I've been saying a lot of, which is that guys are getting their pitches, it seems like a lot, but they're taking strikes on pitches that they should be swinging at early in counts just because what they want to take the first pitch in the at-bat. Well, all that's going to do is when you come up to bat and you're just down automatically 0-1, that as any sabermetrician would tell you, that greatly diminishes your likelihood of getting a hit. So being aggressive on the first pitch is good. It's kind of that in between, because I do want to see the leadoff hitter work a good at bat, but I think because of the purpose of leadoff hitters, just to kind of throw the starter off and make him uncomfortable. I don't think, unless it's a home run, what makes a starting pitcher more uncomfortable than barreling up a fastball and drilling it off the wall and right and getting to third base with no man out? So that, I think that worked perfectly to get Montas off of his groove, and of course he didn't give up any more runs after the first inning, so what does it matter anyway, I suppose. But a great at-bat for Kiermaier, and that ended up being the only hit on the night. It was his first triple, I think the 3rd triple overall for Tampa Bay on the season. I don't know, really, 24 games in, if you would consider that a lot or not many. Seems like they've been lacking a little bit in home runs compared to other teams, but have had quite a bit of doubles. Also, another thing to mention, they did not have an extra base hit in the last 2 games, and I think going into tonight they had gone their last 73 at-bats without an extra base hit, which, that's hard to kind of, I guess, quantify what that means, but that's not great, certainly, and they were getting runners in scoring position, but it was just with walks and with singles, and you would love to see a bases clearing double in one of those situations, but the big hit just hasn't been there lately. But tonight they kind of break through with 4 doubles, a triple, and a home run. So total on the night, 6 extra base hits after, again, not having any in your last 2 games. So kind of breaking through a little bit in that regard. Kiermaier, he ended up coming across to score in that first inning. It was Brandon Lau. He grounded to the pitcher for out number 1, and Arozarena with a hard ground ball to third base, and the third baseman Vimal Machin, he just kind of had to eat the play there, and they ended up calling it an error on him, but Randy, who hit the ball hard, did get the run batted in, but we'll talk about him later. But that did allow Kiermaier to come across a score. imagine how infuriating that would be in the first inning. You have a runner at third with nobody out, and imagine if they couldn't bring him across the score, but thankfully they did. Kiermaier, the rest of the night was rough. Struck out to start the third, grounded out to second in both the fifth and the sixth inning, and struck out with a man on second in the eighth inning. So let's take a look at his strikeouts. Not that I want to be super critical of him right now, because I think he's playing pretty well at the plate. A 3-pitch strikeout against Montas, takes a splitter kind of down and in, and that's a pitch, I guess, that you should take. And Chad Fairchild, I guess, with a decent game umpiring behind home plate. Then on an 0-1, took another pitch. It was a fastball kind of middle in, so Montas was working him inside there for sure. And then he swung through a fastball up and in, and with 2 strikes, that's a difficult pitch to take, but was probably right on the edge there, but he went for it and just couldn't barrel it up. So just, getting behind in the count early, as we always say, and that definitely hurts you. The strikeout in the 8th inning for Kiermaier was another 3-pitch strikeout against Raymond Gudon. Took a pitch looking for strike 1. It was a slider down and away. Then chased that pitch for strike 2. Then he got that same pitch kind of slider down and away, but a little more in the zone, and he swung through that one as well, so just couldn't barrel it up there. But when he's making contact right now, it's pretty loud contact and hard contact. It's not he's not playing hero ball as much. There was the play defensively, of course, but outside of that, on the offensive side, he's really just trying to hit a lot of singles, which is what we've been waiting to see. And we do have a note from Tompkin on Twitter about that play in the 6th inning. If you need a little bit of a refresher, the situation, the Oakland A's had a runner at third base with only 1 out, and Mitch Moreland at the plate, and he flies out basically to right center field. I mean, it was left center. It was basically in left field. It was a Rosarena's ball. But, with Kiermaier, the big rocket arm, he wanted to catch that, and so he could fire it home and maybe throw the runner out at home plate. It was right to Rosarena, and you just see Kiermaier screaming in from center and trying to get him to back off. Or Rosarena doesn't, and so Kiermaier has to kind of leap in to catch the ball, which it doesn't make sense because Rosarena's body was positioned where he could kind of gain momentum into the throw. Instead, Kiermaier's running to catch it and then kind of has to reset the throw. So that we talk about hero ball with Kiermaier. That's kind of an example of that. But with Kiermaier, he had a lot to say about that 6th inning play where he jumped in front of a Rosarena to make the catch and throw home. In short, that he felt he had the best chance with best arm to make the best play. Knew it didn't look good, but was confident he made the right play. And, that's Kiermaier for you. I don't really know what else to say, and that's from Tompkin on Twitter. Rosarena looked very irritated after that play, and understandably so. That's basically Kiermaier, and he admitted it in the quote, is just he thought, telling the guy next to you, hey, I'm better than you, so get out of the way. And anyone that's played a team sport, that's not really what you should do as a teammate. I understand the situation in the game. It was, at that point, tied 1-1 in the middle innings where your offense has not been able to put anything together. So throwing that runner out at home plate goes a long way. But that still doesn't change the fact that what he did. I mean, that was Randy's ball in left field, and just Kiermaier trying to do too much, and they don't obviously end up throwing him out at home. Mitch Moreland, I mean. So that'll be a topic of conversation for sure. It seemed like, Randy was really shaking his head, and you could tell he was really irritated for the rest of that half inning. And there was a couple plays the rest of the game where you could tell Randy was being a little bit traumatic when Kiermaier would call fly balls in center field, and he would back off like more than he usually would to kind of make a point. But they fist bumped out there in center, did KK and Randy. So I don't know what that means, but the one thing that the Rays have been so good at is team kind of chemistry. They've congealed really well, even with a lot of new guys that they bring in, and the last thing they need is a situation where they've got guys at odds with each other. I think the way Kiermaier talks, he does things certainly that rub people the wrong way, and I understand all of that. Kiermaier really takes himself on as being the leader of the team, and he wants obviously guys to follow him, and some do. I think maybe some, I don't know if push back on that is the right right turn of phrase, but it's just you never get the sense that he's like the unquestioned, undisputed leader of the team that everyone is just like in line with. So it's just awkward, and it was really weird to see that tonight. And that's really all I can say about that. But outside of that, I mean, Kiermaier doing Kiermaier things. In center field, it seems like he's had some difficulty tracking fly balls in the roof as of late, so that's kind of strange to see as well. But outside of that, the leadoff triple, fantastic, his first of the year, but just a couple of difficult strikeouts. He just couldn't put the barrel on the baseball, and then a couple of grounders to second base outside of that. So and all in all, not a bad night. I do always love to see him in leadoff. I just think he's a guy that can be so electric, and that's kind of who you want at the top of the order. I don't need a Meadows pop-up to start the game. I would rather have what we got from Kiermaier, which was a triple off the wall. So a fan of that, and who knows if that'll continue. I don't imagine that it would, but we'll see. Brandon Lau in the 2 spot tonight. He goes 1 for 5, no walks, a strikeout. The average is down to 160 now, at 277 on base. Going into the game, a lot of guys were certainly slumping, and I have the note here. So Brandon Lau going into tonight was 0 for his last 14 and on a 3 for 29 stretch, hitting 158. Adames going into tonight, and he got the night off. Did come in as a defensive replacement. He's on an 0 for 14 skid. Austin Meadows was 0 for his last 10. Wendell 0 for his last 9. Yandy 0 for 8. Brasso 2 for his last 20. And Margot 9 for his last 42. So just a lot of guys struggling right now. And some nights it seems like all 9 guys in the order are just kind of struggling. But outside of Meadows, they all got at least 1 hit. So that's good. But Lau, rough start to the season, and it seems like everyone's trying to pump him up, and he's important to this team, man, for sure, but it's tough right now. He grounded out to the pitcher and didn't bring the runner in from third. In the first inning, he hit his single in the third with nobody on, so that was against Frankie Montas, and it was to deep right on a 3-1 count, so he did take kind of some borderline pitches there after fouling off 97 middle, and that's been an issue for him. He fouled off that pitch again, middle, and then singled off of it the next time. So really a couple pitches in that at bat that he could have driven for sure, but got the same pitch for a third time and did single off of it. And so, I guess the single, I suppose. Then in the 5th inning, he got to second base on the 2-bag error for Montas. It was just kind of I believe it was just kind of a routine ground out a little bit, and then just Montas messed up the throw. It was on an 0-2, and it fouled off, again, fastball's middle part of the plate, just not making good contact, and just kind of chased something down and in, a splitter, and kind of a weak grounder, but does get all the way to second base. Maybe could have gotten to third if he had a better read of the play, but I don't blame him for that. It was a difficult situation. And then struck out looking to start the 7th, and that, I believe, was a difficult at-bat with some tough calls and some good takes. He's Wendelken, who ultimately got the not the loss, it was Montes who got the loss, actually. For some reason, I don't know why that is. Or I guess, well, yeah, never mind. The run did come across for Montes. But for Wendelken, was working him outside with a lot of fastballs and changeups as well. 93 kind of middle in, fouls that off, and then took a pitch on high and away, a fastball for strike 3 called. So that was kind of disappointing to see, and what's a rough night and what has been a rough start to the season for Brandon Lau, but did look pretty good over at second base. Batting third, Randy Arozarena tonight. Randy is 1 for 3 with a run knocked in and a walk. His average is still over 302. It's up a point from, I think, going into tonight. A 362 on base and a slugging of 453, so across the board on the slash line is performing as he'd like. Drove in a run on reaching base via an error in the first inning, so did put the ball in play with the runner at third and less than 2 outs, which is what you want. Popped up with a runner on first in the third. He walked with Lau on second in the 5th, and then hit a bases empty 1-out double in the 7th, so did get an extra base hit. It's just his 3rd double of the year, so I think, 3 doubles and maybe 3 or 4 home runs. Let's make sure that on the season for Randy, he's got 3 home runs in the year, 11 runs knocked in. And if you're interested, 63rd best in the majors, 815 OPS, on base plus slugging. I'm not as familiar with OPS, but I think that's a decent number. And seems to be one of the better, I guess, in the majors, if you would consider 62 or 63 along those lines. And for him, I guess you would say fine. That play, obviously, in left field with Kiermaier was kind of maybe what defines his night a little bit. But he reaches base 3 times in 4 plate appearances. So I guess nothing bad you can say about that. And batting at the top of the order, whether he's leadoff, second, third, I don't know about hitting him cleanup, but they certainly could try it. I would just like to get him more at bats, which having him first or second, you'd be more inclined to get him that extra AB. Batting cleanup tonight, and I'm not a fan of this. Austin Meadows, the DH, and he is on a rough stretch, 0 for 4 with the 2 strikeouts, and his average right now is down to 213, a 337 on base. He flew out to right with a runner at first and 1 out in the first inning, struck out with a runner on first and 2 outs in the third, struck out with runners at first and second and 1 out in the 5th, and then grounded out with a runner at second base in the 7th. So, well, let's actually take a look at all of his at-bats, because it's just he's missing opportunities right now. He's getting good pitches, including, I want to say the last at-bat maybe, or the strikeout prior, where he got a really good pitch. It was just a slider that was hung in the middle of the zone, and he just, I think he either took it or just swung through it or whatever, and ultimately ended up making an at-bat, or making an out in the at-bat, rather. So the fly out to right in the first, 195 middle, fly out to right, and he's been undercutting the baseball like crazy lately. The strikeout in the 3rd inning against Montes again, fouled off a couple fastballs, and then chased a pitch high and away for strike 3. Then the strikeout in the 5th with runners, as I said, at first and second, and that was a chance for them certainly to take the lead, one of the many opportunities that they had, obviously, to do that against Montes again at a 3rd at-bat against him, and on a 2-2 count, he fouled off some fastballs again, fouled off a splitter at 85, and that was maybe his pitch to drive, and then chases a poor pitch and chase ball 3, low and away splitter. But that was a terrific pitch from Montes, I must say. It had nice, nasty late break on it. It was the pitch prior that was just hung and did not have any break, and that was his pitch to drive, and he just fouled it off. So ended up striking out in the at-bat, but those are the things that you don't necessarily see, where he's getting good pitches to swing at and drive, and he's just not doing it, which, that's one of the most frustrating things to see of all, because, it's bad when guys aren't getting their pitch, but when they are and they're not doing anything with it, I think that's even more kind of infuriating. His at-bat in the 7th was just on a first pitch, kind of fastball, should have taken it, probably low and outside, but a runner at second as well with 1 out, so maybe he just thought he was going to get something good first pitch. So at least he's trying some different things, that's for sure, and there was no issues with, he was the DH. So yeah, obviously no issues with him defensively. Joey Wendell tonight in the 5 spot. He starts in shortstop and moves over to 3rd, and he played good at shortstop, as it seems he always does. 1 for 4 with a run knocked in and a strikeout. 316 average on the year, and he was on a bit of a rough stretch going into tonight and had a couple of missed opportunities. Grounded out in the 1st with 1 out, or 2 outs and 1 man on. Struck out to start the 4th. Grounded out with runners at 1st and 2nd in the 5th, but ultimately came through. The only hit on the night, 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. It was the Joey Wendell RBI single in the 7th, so that was good to see him come through. 2 strikes, goes the opposite way. You see him choke up on the bat with the no batting gloves, Joey forearm, so good to see him kind of maybe return to form, or at least seeming to head back that way, and was good defensively. Yandy Diaz, 1 for 4, no walks, no strikeouts, a 236 average and a 396 on base, so he's still getting walked a ton. Just the single tonight. Grounded out to start the inning, flew out with nobody on and 1 out, grounded out to start an inning, and then followed up Wendell's RBI single with a single of his own, which made it first and second with 2 outs, and that was his night, and I think looked fine over at third base. He hasn't played there a ton, but he looked good in spring training also, so he can play, I think, probably either of the corners in the infield. Yoshi Satsugo tonight, he plays first base, 1 for 3 with a walk. He has not gotten a starting opportunity in quite some time, mainly because the Rays have seen a lot of lefty starters, and they finally get their chance against a righty. His average is up to 193, and on base at 258. He did it a double. It was a pitch in on the hands, and he pulled it to right, and that was really good to see him do more of. I would love to see that. And that was good for his third double of the year. Walked with 2 outs and no one on, but did start a little bit of a rally there in the fourth. The double that followed had second and third. Grounded out in the sixth, and then with nobody on, and then in the seventh inning with first and second and 2 outs, and the chance to add an additional insurance run, and he grounds out there as well. So we've seen a lot of frustrating strikeouts for him. Maybe he's taken some time, out of the lineup and looked at his game and reevaluated some things and putting the ball in play a little bit more, and he did walk tonight as well, which was good. So I'm a fan of that. Frankie Mejia, 3 for 4 on the night. No walks, no strikeouts, but a run scored, an average of 311, an on-base of 333. So not getting walked a ton, but when you're hitting 311, why do you need to walk? Flew out to right with a man on second. In the second, doubled with a man on first and 2 outs to make it second and third. Hit a 2-out single in the sixth, and then hit a leadoff double in the eighth that they were not able to bring in. But he's been terrific so far, hitting doubles 4 and 5 on the season, and he's been a terrific backstop as well. Secured some strikes, some questionable calls maybe going against the A's from Chad Fairchild there, but as a Rays fan, obviously you're not going to complain about that too much. And the game-winning hit, Mr. Brett Phillips in right field. He goes 1 for 3 with 2 runs knocked in and 1 scored. That's a 2-run homer for you. No walks, a strikeout. An average right now that's up to 172 and has not looked particularly great working at bat at any time of the year, just kind of swinging away at stuff, and that's, I think, just going to be who he is. And I meant to mention this last night. We had a caller that was talking about Phillips, and his point was that, he's not going to be kind of an everyday guy. He's just going to be kind of a pinch run guy on the bench, fifth outfielder type that's good defensively in any of the 3 spots. And hitting-wise, I think he's just going to be kind of a Dan Johnson, where maybe he's going to have a lot of legendary moments, and they don't really make sense, and you wish that he could do it more, but it's just you take what you get, and it's really exciting to watch. And so if it wasn't for his 2-run homer, I don't know if the Rays win tonight. Probably not, because of how miserable they were with runners in scoring position. It was a runner at first. Mejia almost hit a home run, and he was running out of the box, and it ended up just being a single, so that was a tough spot. But with the home run, then on the next at-bat with Phillips, it was all was forgiven, I suppose. It was Phillips' homer, 417 to left center, so he went opposite field, 417 feet. I mean, he really put a good hurtin' on that baseball against Frankie Montas. It was on a 2-2 count and just got a fastball kind of middle, and like I wish more guys would do. He just put a good swing on it, and that was it for him, and the Rays never looked back after that. And always looks exciting out there and right. And he also did lay down a sac bunt with a runner at second and no outs to move successfully Mejia to third base. So not something I was aware he did a lot. We haven't really seen it much, but that was cool to see. And this tonight, by the way, was his second home run as a Ray. He had just one a season ago. And then from the pitching staff, what can you say? They put up another good performance. A lot of zeros in there as well. Michael Wacha in his, 5th start of the year, I believe, as we're now completed our 5th turn through the rotation. This is what we were expecting, 4 or 5 innings of maybe 1 or 2, 3 runs. 5 innings, 1 run on 5 hits, no walks, 2 strikeouts. So not a lot of swing and miss. 69 pitches, 52 for strikes, 15 of 20. 15 of 20 in establishing the first pitch strike. That's terrific. that's his game, though. It pounds the strike zone, throws the cutter and the fastball about 34% each, and then comes back with the changeup the rest of the time. And I guess is just daring hitters to make good contact. And tonight, the Oakland A's against him were really not doing that. A leadoff single for Kana in the first, 3 straight singles that loaded the bases in the second, and they walked away with bases loaded, nobody out, and just 1 run. So credit to Walker for limiting the damage. A 1-out single in the third, and that was it. So outside of that threat in the second, and he seems to have maybe an inning a game where things come apart a little bit. And that's what we've talked about with multiple guys, whether it's Glasnow or Rich Hill or Yarbrough even, that things are going to go wrong. How do you respond? A guy like Honeywell has really struggled to respond in some of those moments, but some guys like Walker here tonight was up to the challenge, and it was fun to watch him work tonight. And like I said, really just kind of dares guys to hit his stuff. It's not terrific, and it's not very deceptive, at least in my opinion, but there are nights where it's going to get the job done. I don't really want to see him, say in Dodger Stadium in October or something like that, just like in a big moment. But that's not what he was brought in to do. He was just brought in to be a 5-starter. And when your 5-starter allows just 1 run over 5 innings, you take that and you say thank you very much. And they were able to cash that in for a win tonight in what ended up being a no decision, by the way, for Walker. After that, they go to the bullpen. Jeffrey Springs pitches a 1-run 6th. He's been pretty good this year. It was a leadoff double to Olsen. And then a wild pitch gets him to third, so the runner at third with nobody out in what was, at that point, a tie game. So he did end up giving the lead away and somehow still got the win, which is nuts, right? A sac fly in there as well. So I guess you wouldn't really say mitigate the damage, but kept it to just a run, I suppose. And just because of the Phillips 2-run homer in the bottom frame of the inning, he does end up coming away with his first win as a Ray. He's 1-0 on the season, collected his first Major League save this year as well. So the Rays, I guess you would say, getting the best out of Jeffrey Springs right now. 3 for 4 with a first pitch strike, and 12 of his 17 pitches were over for strikes. Then in the 7th inning, they go Ryan Thompson, 1 inning scoreless. Not a whole lot going on there. A leadoff single to Seth Brown, pinch hitting, and then a strikeout, a pop out, and a ground out. So had to face the 7, 8, 9, and 1 hitters, and none of them are extremely dangerous. So kind of a low leverage spot for him. Like they were saying on the radio call that this is high leverage. I don't know about that. A 2-run lead in the 7th against those hitters. I don't know, but he came through. So good on him for that. 11 of his 16 pitches over for strikes and 2 of 4 with a first pitch strike. Then the questionable move of the night, one of the more questionable moves of the season, I suppose. Trevor Richards, who now has an ERA of 5, so it was even worse than that coming in. And really just, I don't know what really impresses you about Richards. He doesn't do a great job at throwing strikes, and he kind of throws some kind of softball changeups over the plate. And so he's been kind of just a 3-inning mop-up guy, but, Cash says, screw it, let's get wild. Let's just use him as the setup man with a 2-run lead against the best team in the American League, and it ended up paying off. Gave a leadoff walk to Lowry, and this is what gets me too, in the 8th inning with a 2-run lead, and this is the highest leverage spot of the game, the 2, 3, and 4 hitters, and he ends up having to face Lowry, Matt Olson, who's like batting over 300, with like almost 20 RBIs and 6 home runs, Ramon Laureano, and Mitch Moreland, who's like been historically a Rays killer with the Red Sox. That's who he has to face. I would have even brought Castillo in at that moment, or you thought that in the setup man was either tonight going to be Thompson or Kittredge, or so we thought. Kittredge does not even get into the game, and I guess we should be saying some prayers or something that he's not on the injured list, because that's the last thing they need. But I'm not volunteering that. I don't think that that's the case, but I'm just saying we don't know if he's fine or not. Hopefully we'll see him tomorrow. Glasnow's pitching, so it's not like they need an opener. But they go with Richards in that spot. Whatever. Again, worked the leadoff walk to Lowry and brought the tying run to the plate in the 8th. And retired Matt Olson in what was, I think, either the Olson or the Laureano flyout was almost out of the park in 11 of the 30 Major League stadiums that would have been a home run, including in the Oakland Coliseum. So, and that would have tied the game in the 8th. And that's what this show would have been about, was like, what the heck is Kevin Cash doing? But instead, comes away with his first hold of the season, 8 of his 13 pitches for strikes, and something he needs to do a good job of, and I guess did 3 of 4 in establishing the first pitch strike. And then he gave way in the 9th inning in what was, I guess, kind of a low leverage spot. The Rays gave him some cushion, or no, that was before they had the 2-run lead already. And he has to face Sean Murphy, the catcher, who went yard last night, and Seth Brown and Vimael Machin. So, and then he ended up having to face Chapman as a pinch hitter for the final out as well. So, got kind of tricky there. Allowed the home run to Murphy, so he homers in back-to-back games, and that made it a 1-run game. And then got Seth Brown to ground out, Machin to strike out, and Chapman, who's walked off against Castillo already. That was in 2019, and that was a lot made of that moment in the 2019 wild card game in Oakland, where maybe Castillo exercised some demons perhaps, and since then I think has continued to be a valuable member of the Rays bullpen. But he got Chapman to strike out. Thought his pitches looked good. It's been a week or so since he's pitched in a game, like 6 days. So good to see that, the vaccine effects aren't lingering. So it was probably just a couple-day thing where he didn't feel exactly right. And so good to see that he's feeling fine now and that the arm and the pitches are electric. 9 of the 13 for strikes and 3 of 4 in establishing the first pitch strike. And I know that doesn't mean a whole ton when you're only facing 3 or 4 men, but that's a big part of any pitcher, but a reliever when you're pitching with the lead. The last thing you want to do is walk guys, and how do you not walk guys is you get ahead in the count early. So the bullpen did a relatively good job of that here tonight, and so that's really all I can say. They not lucky. I mean, Brett Phillips, that was a legit home run. It was a pitch at, I think it was at 96, but catching a lot of the plate, and he did what you're supposed to do to it. You don't expect the 9-hitter to come up in that moment. You would have kind of preferred for it to be Randy or Brandon Lau perhaps as well, Meadows. But instead, Lau and Meadows are continuing to slump, but Rosarena has been phenomenal. I mean, you're talking American League Rookie of the Year frontrunner with a 302 average right now. So some guys are hitting well. I mean, look at the lineup tonight. Wendell, Kiermaier, Rosarena, Diaz, and Mejia. So that's what, 5 hitters that are playing pretty good right now. So maybe they're going to be able to catch a little bit of a wave here. Certainly, you would hope that would be the case. But now we turn the page to tomorrow's game. It doesn't look like we've got any news. I mean, we know who's going to be starting for the Rays, certainly, as Tampa Bay makes their 6th turn of the year through the starting rotation. Hard to believe we're already this far into the year. Tomorrow at 7:10 at the Trop, it'll be lefty Cole Irvin for the A's, and the righty Tyler Glasnow for Tampa Bay. So the Rays side first, Tyler Glasnow, the 27-year-old right-hander, is 2-1 on the year with a 2.05 ERA. His last start was his only loss of the season. 6 runs against the Blue Jays, 5 earned runs on 5 hits. All five of those runs came in the first inning. There was a 3-run homer allowed to Simeon in that as well, and really cleaned up the act afterwards. Did finish with 10 strikeouts. So he's been terrific this season. A couple of 6-inning starts with 1 or no runs, 7 2/3 scoreless against the Rangers, and of course that gutsy performance, 5 innings of a run in Yankee Stadium. Looking to see if he's pitched against Oakland in his career, and it does not look like that's the case, unless he did it with Pittsburgh, which, you don't anticipate that being the case. So will probably be facing Oakland for the first time in his career. That will be kind of interesting to see. I think he matches up well. I mean, Oakland is heavy righty, and they have not been making good contact. And Glasnow is loving his fastball right now. I think he's just going to feed them fastballs often and early, and hopefully the breaking ball is working a little bit better than it did last time out because it was not terrific. So 6-7 innings, maybe no, or just a run Would love a nice shutout or something from him. Would love to see him complete a game one of these days. I don't know that tomorrow is going to be the case, but you never know. So let's say he gets you, we'll be modest and say he gets you 6. So you need 9 outs, presuming you're winning the game. Guys will go on back-to-backs, I presume. Springs, Thompson, and Castillo could all probably pitch tomorrow. Strickland and Head will be on 1 day's rest, and so that would be kind of the only other thing. So they're fine in that regard. That's the one thing they've done well is, I guess, keep the bullpen rested, the guys at least that they have healthy. And for Cole Irvin, the 27-year-old left-hander is 2-2 on the season with a .386 earned run average. His last time out against the Baltimore Orioles, getting the win, went 5 1/3, allowing just a run on 8 hits. In 21 innings, has allowed 24 hits, so a whip of 129, which is not great. Has not walked a lot, though. Just 3 walks in those 21 innings. He stretched out through 93 pitches his last time out, and I'm seeing just kind of mediocre. He's got 6 innings scoreless against the Tigers, but a couple of bad starts against the Astros. 5 1/3 of 4 runs, and 4 1/3 of 4 runs as well, but I guess you would say has cleaned up his act a little bit since then. So probably, another 5-inning starter or so. They're going to see another lefty, so more of the lineups that we've seen lately. So if they go heavy right-handers, let's say they do maybe Randy in left, Kiermaier probably in center, Manuel Margot in right, I would predict, and then the infield from third to first. Maybe if they want to go super crazy, I guess they would go maybe Brasso at third, Adames at shortstop, maybe Brasso at second and Yandy at first, Zanino to catch, and then DH would be Meadows, Yoshi, Lau if you wanted to, and then that's where you would go. So that's what I anticipate happening tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll be discussing a win. We will be on the air, of course, after the game as always, about this time as tonight, 10:30 or so Eastern time. Thank you for everyone who tuned into the program. We'd love to maybe have some of you guys call the show tomorrow. We always love hearing from you guys. Make sure to subscribe to the show on where you're listening to this on Spreaker.com. Also follow us on Twitter at WHBC Official. The link to the show goes straight on Twitter when we're live, so you don't have to wait for the link to pop up on Discord or Reddit or wherever you found us tonight. But either way, thank you again for tuning in. We'll talk to you tomorrow, hopefully about a Rays win. We'll see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.